Morning, everyone. This is Coach Gio with the Film Room Podcast, tuning in here for our Week 10 recap. All right, so we got a lot to talk about. The two games that I featured were very exciting, a little bit more lopsided than I would have expected, honestly, but very good to watch. I was able to catch the first half of Mountain View versus Mill Creek and the second half of Brookwood Parkview. I have a lot to say on both games. I'm really excited to be able to cover those. I have a couple other games that I'm going to quickly feature just as I was keeping up on Max Prep and Score Stream. Really exciting stuff going around the county. A lot of playoff pictures coming together here in the last couple of weeks. So as we go through each segment here, make sure you stay listening. There's a lot to talk about. And as always, make sure you subscribe and follow us and wherever you listen or watch us on and social media. All right, and here we go. We're going to start talking about Mountain View versus Mill Creek next. All right, so like I said, I was at the Mountain View versus Mill Creek game last night. I had never been to the Mill Creek Stadium as a fan. I've been there as a coach and as a player. And it was an amazing atmosphere. There was very little room in the Mill Creek side. The Mountain View crowd was very large as well. It took me about 5 minutes to find a comfortable seat. And it was very lively. It was a good game. In the first half, a little bit back and forth in the first quarter. And then after the second quarter, Mill Creek started to take over. Just a quick stats that I was able to get down again. They may not be exact. I would check Max Preps. I would check Gwinnett Daily Post just to make sure. But I was able to get down that their running back for Mill Creek, number 1, Chancellor Lee Parker, had a heck of a game, okay? 23 carries, 215 yards, 5 touchdowns. I thought that was great. I was able to jot down some of their offensive lineman names who just dominated the line of scrimmage. It was Stokes, Easley, Stewart, Redder, McIntyre, and Hancock, the ones I was able to get down. Guys, that's amazing. Offensive line from Mill Creek, you did a great job last night. You set the tempo for that team. On defense, the 2 plays that I was able to witness, both while I was there and then later on through different videos on social media. I believe his name is Caleb Downs, the freshman who got the interception touchdown for Mill Creek. Great play, 40-plus yards there. And then Caleb Spikes for the Mill Creek defense had 2 sacks. Really putting pressure on the Mountain View offense, who had a hard time really establishing the ground game that they're used to. Even with that, their running back, who I said to look out for, number 7, Garrett Spikes, did have over 100 yards total that he accounted for the Mountain View offense. He had 86 rushing, 8 receiving, and he even threw a pass in there for 11 yards. My overall analysis of the game, that it was fun. I loved the atmosphere, and it was amazing. Anytime I get to witness an offensive line dominate the line of scrimmage, I am excited, okay, as an offensive line guy. That was great to watch. Well coached, very disciplined. I can't remember any kind of penalties that I actually witnessed from the offensive line. Great get off. You never had to wait for them. They don't really run a hurry offense, but again, they were the first ones up there ready to go, making their calls. Great technique. Shout out to whoever coaches the O-line in Mill Creek. I'm a big fan of yours now. And I mean, number 1, their running back was just outstanding. You know, a couple of touchdowns were goal line. They were short yardage. But he got a couple of runs in there that were just fantastic. One cut and just go. I mean, the holes were there, obviously, but just like the ability to hit the hole and just keep going was great. So the overall region ramifications of this is that Mill Creek pretty much locked up second, if not third in the region, depending on their showdown with Collins Hill in 2 weeks after their off week. And so I will. That's one of the games I'm looking forward to highlighting in a couple weeks. I got some friends over at Collins Hill as well on their coaching staff, so that'll be a fun time for me to be able to catch that game. And then Mountain View's in this stage where they're 2-2 in region, and so they're going to be fighting it out with a couple of the teams who aren't in the first or second place in that region to battle it out. But again, this was a great showdown. I know the score doesn't show it, but Mountain View fought all the way through from what I saw and what I heard after I left. It was really exciting. I'm very excited for Coach Lovelady and that team. Like I said, he establishes a great culture. You can tell on that sideline they were just focused and team oriented. From a coaching standpoint, I love the fact that even when he probably had the right to argue a call, Coach Lovelady kind of went as far as he could, as far as just letting the ref know, hey, I don't agree with the call, but he wasn't in his face. That's kind of a big deal as far as being a mentor to your players. It's very easy. I've done it before. I'm totally guilty of it as a coach. I mean, from out of the crossing especially, they can testify. I'm very much a hothead when it comes to officials. I have to constantly check myself. I have a get back guy. I have a coach whose main responsibility is just to make sure that I'm not going to get in trouble. And so to be able to witness that at such a high intensity level game, to be able to stay cool headed, big shout outs to Coach Loveady and his staff. Stay tuned for the next segment for the game between Parkview and Brookwood. I was able to catch the second half of that. And so stay tuned. Okay, so the Brookwood Parkview game actually started off close. When I saw the score nearing the half before I headed over there, it was 22-19 Parkview. I thought they were going back and forth. It looked really exciting, like it was going to be a fun second half. I got there probably halfway through the third, and Parkview was already being dominant. By the time the game was over, they ended up winning 50-19, which is a huge margin of victory. It's the first time in the rivalry that they've gotten to, one of the teams has gotten to 50 points. They had some outstanding play. Obviously, I mentioned Cody Brown in the pregame podcast. He ended up rushing for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. But they were really led in the air game, right? They capitalized on Brookwood's weaknesses, which I spoke about as well. They found those soft spots in the secondary. And so their QB, Jordan Williams, was able to go for 245 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jared Brown, who this is the receiver, but he's really one of those athletes that's all over the field, ended up with 8 catches, 214 yards in the air, 31 rushes, and 3 total touchdowns. On the Brookwood side, though, they showed some really good flashes of what's coming in their future. Number 4, Eli Cole, who I've mentioned plenty in this podcast, had a 91-yard kickoff return touchdown, which is huge, knowing that special team aspect is there, as well as his ability to run the ball. And then their wide receiver, Burdian, ended up with 138 yards receiving. Parkview was very dominant, especially in the second half defensively, and so the Brookwood stats aren't usually what they're used to, which explains the difference in score. Just to put it in perspective, Parkview outgained Brookwood. What I guesstimated by about 300 yards to 105, 106 yards by Brookwood. That's a huge margin of difference as far as offensive productivity goes. What I liked about the game, just like the previous game, is the atmosphere. The Parkview crowd was very illustrated. They had a lot of different chants. They had a lot of things to go with. And the Brookwood side was just as packed. I actually ended up just standing on the sideline of the game because there was really nowhere to sit. And, and what I really liked is even though the score kept getting, more Parkview sided, the Brookwood fans didn't leave. They stayed there and supported. Obviously, Parkview was very excited. So the atmosphere was great to be at. Now, as far as the region goes, Parkview's pretty much locked down. First place in this region. Brookwood still kind of controls their destiny. Since they have Norcross next week, the winner of that game is going to end up in second. Loser probably end up in third. And then we're going to end up seeing what happens in the fourth place there. In this third segment that I'm adding, I'm going to talk real quickly about 2 games that really caught my eye that I was keeping up with. And that's going to be Central Gwinnett versus Meadow Creek and Grayson versus Newton. So make sure you stay tuned. All right, a little bonus in this podcast. Central versus Meadow Creek. This meant a lot to me as an alumni at Central because as I kept tuning into the score in the first half, Meadow Creek seemed very dominant. I honestly wasn't there and I haven't had time to really read up on it. I'm just going off of what I saw on Max Reps and Score Stream. But out of nowhere, in the middle of the third quarter, Central went on a scoring spree, went on to win big. I know their final score was 69, ended up kind of outscoring Meadow Creek there at the end. And so they kept their playoff dreams going, right? In their region, like the same region as Brookwood and Parkview, those 2 teams can kind of go back and forth as far as who can lock down third and fourth. And so it was a fun way to kind of end my night to be able to catch up on that and see that Central really turned it around at the end and was able to beat Meadow Creek. That's not a down on Meadow Creek at all. No, I'm actually a big fan of Coach Carrera, and now he's able to turn that community around to be able to be productive not only in football but within, their character development. I think it's been great for that community as well. And then the second game I want to focus on is Grayson Newton. I know Newton's not part of our county, but Grayson and Archer and Shiloh and South Gwinnett have to share, their region without a county teams, just the way it got set up. And the only real reason I want to talk about it, A, Grayson dominated, but 2, Phil Maffa came back, guys. He had a tremendous game. I don't have his exact stats. Please make sure to check out the blog post. I'll have way more in-depth analysis on Phil and Grayson there. But I was just really proud to be able to see a kid come back from injury in the second game and just, show everyone what those of us close to Grayson and who watched Grayson last year know is that he is a premier back in this county, in this state. And he's just now starting to warm up, which should be terrifying for anyone coming up on Grayson because you already seen all season what Gerva can do to you, number 7, and now you have another just tremendous running back in Phil Maffa that's coming up, and he's just now starting to rev up to his potential after coming back from injury. So that was exciting. Again, thank you for tuning in this week. It was really fun to prepare these guys. I'll be honest with you. I know we're all rolled out the preview just a little close to game time there. Again, I'm a rookie at this. I'm learning a lot about editing and how the whole process works and setting up timelines. And so I appreciate your patience. Make sure you subscribe though. Make sure that we're getting hooked up with Spotify and Apple Podcast, Anchor, all the different third-party apps for podcasts we're on as well. Google Podcasts as well. I know that's a big one people use. Obviously, we have the YouTube channel, social media, the Film Room Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, we're the Film Room Pod. So please make sure to follow us and subscribe. And then be on the lookout for my next podcast. It's not going to be the preview. My next podcast is going to come out next Wednesday, and it's going to be on recruiting. Okay, we're gonna launch what I'm calling the InfoCast series. It's going to be 3 or 4 episodes per topic, and I'm going to be featuring experts in that field. Right? My expertise was operations, all the boring stuff that people don't really see that happens in high school football. And so I'll have a series where it's just me kind of blah-thing about what I know about the game and what I had to do for a few years. But there's so many aspects of the game that A, I think people misunderstand, and 2, that aren't really getting done right before they get to high school as far as preparation for the player, parents, and coaches. And so my goal with these InfoCasts is to be able to give a holistic perspective to any up-and-coming high schoolers, any up-and-coming high school parents, and again, youth coaches. It's a big focus for me because as Gwinnett County continues to grow, we got to make sure that our quality of product that we're putting on the field to be able to get the recognition that we do in the classroom and on the field continues, and that falls heavily on youth coaches. And I know you're volunteers, and I think you do a great job, but I think the more resources you can have, the better it's going to be for our entire county. Now, this recruiting 3-part series on the InfoCast is really going to focus on, part 1 is going to focus on what we need to do before high school and in that first year of high school as recruits, as parents, as a community, how we need to prepare. Obviously, we're going to get off topic a little bit because of the guests I have on, where they're very knowledgeable and, I know them, and we're going to go off on our little tangents here and there. Second part's going to be primarily about in the middle of your high school career, what that looks like, the difference between a visit and a tour and stuff like that, these little things that kids kind of throw around. Oh, I went on an official visit. No, you didn't. You went on the tour. Relax. And so it's getting down to that nitty gritty. And then the third episode is really about building your recruiting community. Who do you want to listen to? Who should you take advice from? Who do you need to trust? How do you know if someone is actually working for you or for themselves to use you? And I think those kind of things are very important to know. So our first guest is a very good friend of mine. He's very well renowned for his amazing ability to get kids into college, to be able to build up young men. He's done a great job in the youth leagues as well over the years. Mr. Kenyatta Watson Sr. is going to be my first guest. I'm very excited to have him on. We're going to be recording this episode on Sunday. We've gotten to work together very well. Last year, we were part of the Grayson program. He's been part of the Grayson program for a long time and has kind of stepped away to explore other avenues as far as how to better expand his repertoire in recruiting. But he's someone that I trust. He's someone that I've seen work magic when it comes to getting kids into college and being able to give them the best opportunity for their ability and their education and their future careers. I have a lot of respect for Kenyatta, and I'm really excited he's agreed to be on our podcast and be our first featured guest. So please make sure, especially on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Anchor are our main sources of podcasting. Go ahead and subscribe, guys. The more people I can get to subscribe, the more the message gets spread out, the more this is all worth it. Okay? I'm really excited. As the week goes on, I'll start releasing who's all going to be part of this mini-series, and I'll start slowly releasing the schedule of what all is coming up. We're still going to do the previews and the recaps as well. And then lastly, and I know I'm going on here, and I'm sorry. Lastly, I'm going to start releasing, especially on Instagram. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, on my stories, I'm going to start releasing wallpaper. Okay, I'm going to start Wallpaper Wednesdays. And so if I've featured your team, I have those wallpapers ready. I'm going to drop them on Wednesday. Follow me on Instagram, and I'll make sure, and they're free. All you got to do is screenshot it, save it to your phone, edit out the little border that Instagram does on it, and then it's yours. You can use it on your phone. It's actually formatted for an iPhone. Android users, you can easily just diagram it perfectly. Android's pretty good about letting you edit your images. And it's there. It's including a coach and a player from your team, your logo. If I got your team motto, I threw it on there. I made it look all fancy with your team colors. And then, that's another thing that I've learned how to do is those kind of graphics. So I want to make those available to the teams that I've featured. And again, I'm going to release the Twitter poll. I want to see where I want to go next week. If you want me there, again, I had a couple DMs, which is why I made the trip out to Parkview Mill Creek first for Brookwood, Parkview. Just let me know, okay? I live in the county. I'm more than glad. I've set Fridays aside. I'll take my kids with me sometimes. My wife's really good about coming with me too. This last week, I brought my best friend Dan along, which is pretty cool to have his insight as well as a fan. So just let me know. We have a lot going on. We're really trying to grow this thing. I'm really excited about it. I'm glad for all the support already. So make sure you subscribe, like us on social media, follow us on social media, and then we'll keep it going. Okay, we will see you guys on Wednesday with Kenyatta in our first recruiting podcast, or our infocast, I should say, for that first episode on that 3-part series. So again, my name is Coach Gio. This was the Film Room Podcast, and thanks for tuning in.